Hi, I'm John Fricke. A lot of us know each other already if you've been part of the Chittenango Ozstravaganza over the years since 1990. I've been there almost every year since then as their MC and interviewer and host. And of course, last year we weren't anywhere at all. This year, it's happening a little too soon to start a weekend event for 30,000 people. So we're coming to you for a virtual Ozstravaganza 2021. And hopefully next year at this time, we'll all be together in person. But there are so many people who have Oz connections and Oz activities that we didn't want you to go another 12 months and hear about them after the fact or too late to be part of. And so I'm going to be interviewing several people here this weekend, and you'll be able to watch these at Ozstravaganza time. They'll also be on file at the All Things Oz Museum and Gift Shop so that people can enjoy them there as they visit Chittenango in the decades to come. Get us now while we're still intact, I guess is the backstory of all of this. I am especially pleased tonight. I don't know where this will fall in the course of the weekend, but this is actually the first recording we're making for Ozstrav 2021. And our special guest right now is Gabriel Gale, who came to Oz. We'll tell them all about why you came to Oz to Chittenango 4 years ago. But let's talk a little bit about Brooklyn and the Brooklyn Public Library and drawing and how you found Frank Baum and Oz. Gabriel Gale.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Yeah, I would say that my first interaction with the Baum books was the Brooklyn Public Library, as you said, and I was just reading through them like crazy over and over again. I was so into them. I should mention I was so into them because I started drawing when I would say, probably 5 years old. It's like my earliest memory. And so I loved the illustrations inside, and then I read the books. So in other words, Denslow, Neil, then I started reading the books more and more. I was absolutely enthralled, and I kept reading them, read them over and over again. That was my introduction to the books. And yeah, it's been a love affair ever since.
Did you start drawing then too for your own pleasure, Oz characters? Did that start as early as 5 or 6 or whenever you started the books?
Would have been a little later. It would have been, I would say that I probably first caught the books at the library when I was maybe 11 or 12, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I've always been drawing, and it's the love of my life. And yeah, Oz was just the perfect place to explore.
The one of the things I love about your story is that it's something we share. We both grew up with a lot of parental support for the stuff we enjoyed. Tell about those family vacations across the country and how you had your parents take all these bizarre side jaunts because
So we wanted to see Chittenango, so we drive upstate New York. We wanted to see Syracuse, so we drive through Syracuse. We drove through the Dakotas to see that. We drove through, well, before the Dakotas, Chicago, and we do these big loops around the United States. And of course, interacting with all these locations that Baum lived and wrote, and Kansas too. We drove through Kansas. So all these locations were a big part of my childhood.
and I think that's wonderful too, because again, you come to us first through the MGM movie? Was that your first introduction? But then you diversified. You found the books and you went to the books. It was the same thing for me, which is I think one reason we hit it off when we finally met. Incidentally, not we won't make a production of this, but it's 14 years ago this weekend that Gabe came to Chittenango for his first Oz festival, and that we met. And at that point already, though, as a young man, you had carried your Oz passion to wonderful artistic and creative extremes. Because a week after the festival, when we were both back, I live in New York City, you're in Brooklyn, we got together, and you brought to my apartment proof of your passion for Oz. Explain what you had done by that time, if you would, because it leads into the next part of our story.
Sure. I think I might have been a little too obsessive. I might have scared you at the time. I had hundreds of pages of encyclopedias.
Well,
Every single character in all the Baum books, every single location in all the Baum books, every single magical spell in all the Baum books, alphabetized and sort of organized into these encyclopedias. And so I brought this to your to your home back then, and hopefully I didn't scare you. But
Well,
that,
obviously we're still friends. I'm not scared. I wanted to keep it all here was the problem.
right, I
You
brought
took it away.
3D models of the Emerald City that I made, that I had 3D printed, stuff like that.
And you had maps and charts, and you had a lot of the drawings that you had been working on, because now as an adult you were really into drawing the Oz characters from the Baum books.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in the encyclopedia, I would say the encyclopedias were drawings that I had never seen before, that I was always interested in seeing. And you know how people create the change they want to see in the world. So I wanted to see, like, how did the Wheeler's skeleton work? I wanted to see, how was the Gump constructed by Tip? I wanted to see all these things. So it didn't exist. So I drew them myself and brought them along with me to you and had them in the encyclopedias.
Then there was a passage of time when you worked on something that is again integral to the rest of the story, the Ages of Oz books. The first two of those have been published now. And that is your, again, when you did your encyclopedia, when you did your maps and everything, you also charted Oz history for centuries before Dorothy and the Wizard ever turned up, and for time since then. And not only Oz, but the area, the borderland of Oz countries, and countries of your own creation. And this was just extraordinary to me, because until this year, virtually every book I've written, and there have been 9 of them, they've been nonfiction. I can do history of the MGM movie, history of Oz and Baum, whatever, but I had no creative imagination the way you did. And so when the Ages of Oz books came out, I think we have a visual here, Mr. Gale. Get to work.
So here's the first book in the series is A Fiery Friendship, and the second book is A Dark Descent.
And basically, this is the story of Glinda at age 13, who overnight finds out that she's not a normal quadling girl in Oz. She is a sorceress descended from a line of sorceresses. And basically, Ages of Oz tells the story of how Glinda and the good companions that she meets has to save Oz from the prevailing 5 wicked witches who are in control of everything. Is that a good summation? We'll come back to that in a second.
Great summary.
Anyway, it was those books that brought Gabe to Chittenango 4 years ago. He launched the first book there, and it was so funny. Somebody kind of snidely came up to him and said, "Well, obviously you're the front man for this because you're such a good-looking guy, and you don't really know anything about Oz or about Hollywood." And you shot him down because you'd already been to Hollywood and had meetings with major people about turning Ages of Oz into film, which is something else we'll take up. But basically, because you started on the festival circuit, and you and you came to Chittenango, I recommended that you come to Wamego in Kansas and to the Midwest Oz Festival in Tinley Park, Illinois. And I think in all 3 of them, those years, the other special guest, apart from you, was Jane Lahr, the daughter of the Cowardly Lion from the MGM movie. Now, I've known Jane socially for about 40 years here in New York. She is a very highly regarded book packager, book editor. And I remember you and your sister Renee, who was always around to help at the festivals, and Jane and I went to dinner one night. I think it must have been in Tinley Park, a restaurant right across from the hotel. And Jane started to talk to you about all this stuff that you and I have just discussed. And when she found out about your artwork, though, she was most interested. And when she saw your artwork, and I think, did you have it on your phone or?
I had an iPad with me at the time.
And you started to show her your artwork. Explain what happened next, because it's your story.
So she just started flipping through the iPad and just seeing drawing after drawing of original interpretations of Baum's creations. And I feel like she was really excited about it. She said she was really excited about it. And she said, "What are you doing with this artwork?" And I said, "Well, my first publisher, Simon & Schuster, hired a illustrator to illustrate the books because I couldn't work on the books and the illustrations at the same time. So I said, I'm not doing anything with the drawings right now." So she proposed at that time, at that dinner table with you, that we were going to do a art book specifically for the drawings and the maps and all the stuff that I had created up until that point.
And I think it was about 2 years ago, out of the blue, I got an email from you and an email from Jane saying that you guys were going ahead with this, and I was thrilled because I loved the art, and I wanted to see something done like that. And Jane had the clout. Uh, you guys did a proposal, and you kept dragging me in, which was very gracious of you. I was to write the afterword for this book. Because Gabe kept saying, "Got to have John Fricke. Got to have John Fricke." Why is still a moot point. But I was going to do an afterword. We thought about the MGM movie and the bomb characters and the differences and the pros and the cons and the pluses and the minuses, because that is what most people are familiar with Oz because of the MGM film. Well, that was how. Well, then tell where you took the book proposal and where it finally ended up, because you lucked out with a colossal publisher.
So we're lucky that all of my art history textbooks were published by Rizzoli. So pitching to Rizzoli was a really amazing experience for me. And when they said yes, we were obviously so excited. And so Rizzoli decided to publish the books, and we found out it was going to be just this absolutely beautiful book, and it turned out really, really well. I'm really proud of it, and I'm so proud that you moved from being just a small contributor to writing the entire book. So I'm really, really happy about that.
Well, not quite the entire book. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But I meant to bring this up. Tell them about your college background, though, because you went to two very prestigious schools in art and architecture.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New York City. So I went to Cooper Union for art undergrad, where I had sort of a generalist education, meaning I did sculpture, graphic design, painting, everything. And then for my master's degree, I got an architecture degree from Columbia, where I did very, very experimental architecture, stuff that really could not be built, at least with the technology of the day. So it's more very forward-looking architecture, stuff that you might find in the Emerald City and other cities that that we see in Oz.
Well, and again, there's no reason in the world why it can't have a modern section or modern sweep and scope. The Oz books come and go with all kinds of stuff. If we're talking about the whole arc of the 40, when they have the scalawagons, the little magical cars, and the wizard has the Ozoplanes, and these are inventions of authors post-bomb, but they're all part of the general saga. Okay, now we go back to the book that Jane put the proposal together, for which Jane put the proposal together, and that you was going to showcase your art, and you sold it to Rizzoli, and you had a wonderful. I'm still not quite clear because I wasn't part of all of this back at the first year of it all. But the concept of the book is very interesting because it goes along in the Baum and Thompson and Neal and Snow and Cosgrove and McGraw tradition that Oz is real, that this is not a fairy tale, that all of these things were first discovered by Baum in his way, and he wrote about them, and he became the royal historian of Oz. That's what they have all been called. So that was the premise of the book, and the idea was that different famous Oz characters would each narrate a specific chapter. We'll talk about that in a moment, but there's just this sense of no, that you are, as the first two pages of text describe you. It's a message from you to the reader. You are an explorer and a historian, and what is that? You fight for
Archaeologist fighting good.
but you fight for good and truth and all of those things, and that because of all that you became, and because of your interest, you were allowed to visit Oz, to sketch Oz, and the book was taking off from there. Well, it was less than a year ago. It was only 10 months ago that you came to me and said that for some reason, the writer who was going to do the project had not worked out or was not suddenly available or something. And you said, you brought me in to do it, which, as you said a moment ago. And so this gave us a chance to really work together for the very first time. And it has been such a pleasure. And let's go little bit by little bit. So, because you've got 6 or 8 or 10 drawings to share to explain a little bit more about the book. As we say, it's a fantasy format, and the first There are introductory parts we'll mention, but the first chapter is narrated by Dorothy, and she talks about the witches and their armies of Oz. And some of them, of course, are the Good Witch of the North, Lacosta, and Glinda, whom she met on her first visit to Oz, along with the Wicked Witch of the West. And she met the feet of the Wicked Witch of the East. You should, everybody watching this should be able to understand that. Just think of the shoes under the house. But there are so many. The first chapter is especially original because it includes a lot of the younger versions of the Wicked Witches, the younger version of Glinda and Lacosta, as you talk about them in the Ages of Oz book. Now, I think we've got your sketch of Glinda to show, and it is kind of a cross between the young Glinda that you talk about and a foreshadowing of the mature Glinda, the sketch you've done. And we also, in that spread, as you'll see, it shows the her warriors and the steeds that they were mounted on when they fought the battles that won in the Ages of Oz, good over evil in Oz. And there's a wonderful quote that you said that defining Glinda's mounts, her warriors were mounted, quote, on the most regal and valiant of horned animals, elk, caribou, reindeer, and stags. And that kind of elite, wonderful pride that the good carried into the war. But also from that chapter, we meet one of your original characters. This is the Wicked Witch of the South. Her name is Aphidina. Well, you tell about it and talk about the people that are there, because you see two of her warriors, two of her plant warriors. Would you explain that, please?
Sure. So there was one drawing by Denslow that really imprinted on my mind, which is the drawing of the Wicked Witch of the West, where she's sitting down on a chair with her very tall cap. And on her garments are drawings of reptiles. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if each one of the witches had a particular animal familiar, with the Wicked Witch of the West being reptiles? So I took that concept and multiplied and saw it through. And so the Wicked Witch of the South, who was a creation of mine, her name is Aphidina, her particular familiar is plants. So you can see that she has all of these plant hybrid sort of creatures. And this is all in the Ages of Oz world. And so West, as I mentioned, is reptiles, East is insects, and North is sort of draft animals like very powerful boars and warthogs, etc. And as you mentioned, Glinda has these very regal horned creatures, elk, caribou, reindeer, etc. So it all comes from one drawing by W. Denslow.
And that's imagination and where it can carry you. But again, you'll see in this picture with Aphidina, the Wicked Witch of the South, on the other page facing it, you see these, there are two of the plant creations, and one of them is a flytrap warrior and Drosera, am I saying that correctly?
Right.
Which is a kind of a horned plant. This is a live plant with spikes growing out all over it. So again, this is imagination. And Dorothy tells the story of all these people in her text. We then go on to a chapter narrated by the Cowardly Lion about the beasts of Oz. And this is wonderful too, because even though these are most, and in fact, all the beasts I think you discuss are Baum beasts, but there were several Baum beasts who were not really illustrated in the Baum books. And you've got one of those here.
The Rak. So the Rak is one of my absolute favorite characters, even though he's not drawn by Neil in the book. So I wanted to visualize that, and he's described. And so you'll see that he has the head of a seahorse, the body of a reindeer, the tail of a fish, and wings of a bat. And so so you could see how Baum really allowed me to explore every aspect of my imagination, drawing from life and drawing from the things that he spoke about in the books.
And as they say, the Cowardly Lion narrates that chapter. The Scarecrow comes up next with the Curiosities of Oz. And there are any number of those, but the one we're showing here.
Oh yeah, we're showing Jack Pumpkinhead here. So I was thinking with Jack, I'm thinking sort of like more toward, I'm thinking forward to a movie, a live action movie. And I wanted to see how would Jack's pieces actually work together? How would his arm bone connect with the hand, et cetera? How would the fingers move? So you can see in the drawing how I really gave a lot of thought to how does Jack's hands work, how did Tip carve his head, carve out his eyes, etc. You can see all these sort of details in The Art of Oz.
And of course, because of his name, the head that was carved was a pumpkin, and the body was all whittled out of wood by Tip in the second book, The Land of Oz. Glinda comes into play, has a chapter of her own about the ethereals, some of the really exotic Baum creatures. And I like the two you chose to show here because they're from the borderland of Oz books. You know, Baum didn't only create the Land of Oz, he created the Deadly Desert around it and all these other extraordinary fairy tale countries on the outside, an ocean, all of these things populated by other magical people. And when he was trying to get away from Oz in 1911, he had written 6 Oz books and wanted to quit. So he started a new series about a little girl from California and her old sailor companion. And that book is called
The Sea Fairies. So you'll see here that I took some liberty with the sea fairies. You'll see this beautiful flipper tail on the sea fairy, and you'll see that her appendages sort of stretch out like silky wings, etc. So I still working from Baum's text and Neil's drawings. I just took it a little bit further with how expressive the sea fairies are.
And the facing page here is what you call the Sea Fairy Dance or the Sea Fairy Star. And
Right.
I hope people will be able to see it on the screen because the extraordinary thing is how many mermaids are in that star. You know, it's just a big ring and a smaller ring and a smaller ring and a smaller ring, mermaid upon mermaid. And it's kind of like Busby Berkeley meets Frank Baum. And it is something to see, this artwork. Toto, our own dog, narrates a chapter called The Phantasms. There's a breed of characters in the Oz books called the Phanphasms. They are totally different. The Phantasms, and again, here I have to quote from some of the text from the book. Toto, explaining a phantasm to the reader, says that he went to Professor Wogglebug, the know-it-all of Oz, who explained to him that phantasms are nightmare or fantasy creatures and usually figments of the imagination. The trouble is, this is not true in Oz. In Oz, they're actually real. And this takes us to drawings of some of the most elaborate and far out good and evil Baum characters. Tell us, we've got 3 of them to show here, please.
So I think we could first look at the Horners next to the Frogman. And you can see on the top of the drawing, you'll see a detailed drawing of the Horner. And underneath, you'll see a whole series of sketches of the different horns that the Horners have. And so this is something that I'm really interested in, the variety of life. So you can see it with the Horners. And then on the facing page, you'll see the Frogman dressed as he is as a dandy and just a wonderful guy. I think another one that we're going to show is the Wheelers. As I mentioned before, there is, I was fascinated by how these Wheeler creatures could have wheels as hands and feet. And so you'll see in the book, you'll see the Wheelers as they look, and then you'll see sort of like an X-ray of the Wheelers where you'll see their bones and how the wheels interact with their bones. And what's the third one that we're showing?
That was the Horner, the Frogman, and the Wheelers. Those were the 3. But again, I love the reality you have brought to so many of your drawings is in keeping with the concept of Oz as a real place. Because if these characters are going to be real and live there, they have to still adapt to certain physiology and personal architecture and be proven to be workable and doable. And that's something that shows up. Now, those are, we've talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the chapters. We also, you know, besides the characters we've mentioned, the Tin Woodman narrates a chapter on the mechanicals like Tick-Tock and the Giant with the Hammer. The Wizard does a chapter on the Emerald City, the architecture and his best friends there from the time he first arrived in Oz. Professor Wogglebug does an introduction and he does a chapter on the maps of Oz. And this is, again, Gabriel, Gale, all through. You actually, they didn't have this kind of map in Oz. Do you know where I'm going with this? The kind of map you created?
Sure. So another element of bringing realism to the fun and fantasy of Oz was I wanted to create a Google map of Oz. So it's the world's first satellite photo of a fantasy land. And what better land for that to be than Oz? So inside the book, you'll see a Google map of Oz, and you can zoom in and see where are the rivers and the valleys and the mountains, where did Dorothy land, where is Glinda's palace, where's the Wicked Witch of the West, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you'll have this Google map of Oz. You'll see it in the book.
So there's all of that, plus a proclamation from Princess Ozma right at the top of the book that welcomes you as an Oz historian, as an Oz artist, giving sanction to have your drawings published, and how delighted she is that her citizens who are familiar to the children of the world are actually going to communicate with readers by presenting these things. As it says in the back of the book, it says on the cover of the book, art by Gabriel, Gale, text by John Fricke. Well, you have done all the drawings. And since I have spent so much time in Oz myself since I was 5 years old, I was given the opportunity to do the interviews with Dorothy and the others and create that, put it all in printed form. They had to sign off on it, which of course is fine. But it's kind of nifty to have them run through me. It's an honor I never thought I'd have, as much as I venerated them and as much as I understand they have liked the work we have both done over the years. It says here. Anyway, there are dozens and dozens of other illustrations of the famous Oz characters by Gabriel, Gale, scraps, Polychrome, the Gump, Quox, the dragon, the winged monkeys, the Scoodlers, the Fuddles, the gargoyles, on and on and on. There is also a lacing, I guess you'd say. The book is interlarded with pull quotes from the Baum texts that set up all of these characters in his words. And to contrast and show what they were and what they have become, there are also scattered illustrations from the original Oz books by W.W. Denslow and John R. Neal. And then to cap the whole thing, there is an extraordinary afterword where Michael Patrick Hearn, the preeminent Baum historian and knowledgeability, comes to you and talks to you about all of your inspirations and where your art is taking Oz in the 21st century. So it is quite a book. I'm going to hold up the book cover now, but this will be inserted as well so that people can really see it. And it's from Rizzoli. Do you remember the publication date?
I believe October 5th, early October.
Tuesday, October 5th is tentatively set for the publication. Now, it will certainly be available through the All Things Oz gift shop by order, and they will post stuff about that when the book does come out. I dare say you and I will autograph anything anybody wants. We stop at checks, but up till then. And it's wonderful to do a project like this that carries us both back to when we were kids and fell in love with all this and how it took hold of us and never let go. And the fact that 14 years after we met, thanks to Chittenango and Ostravaganza, here we are. But is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of the book or in terms of its audience or how you hope people receive it?
I would like to say that my thanks to Rizzoli, my thanks to Michael Patrick Hearn for the afterword, my thanks to Jane for bringing us all together. It was sort of like a dream team of Oz collaborators with Michael Patrick Hearn, Jane Lahr, John Fricke. And so I feel very lucky that I had the best possible people working on it. And to add to that, All Things Oz and Mark Baum and Ostravaganza were the debut of my previous series, Ages of Oz, and now this is the first interview that we have conducted for The Art of Oz. So I'm really excited that this is sort of like the debut of that. So thank you to Mark, and thank you to All Things Oz, and thank you to Ostravaganza, et cetera.
And the team and our editor, Gloria Nance, and so many people who it takes much more. It sometimes takes a metropolis, not a village, to do a book. And we both hope that people will like it when they see it and enjoy the The pictures are extraordinary. We hope the text is entertaining and fun. It's supposed to be. If it's not, I have not transcribed the Oz characters accurately. And we will hopefully see you in person at Ozstravaganza in 2022. But I want to thank Gabriel Gale for for giving us the first crack at hearing about his book. And although you'll be watching this in June, uh, please start counting the weeks until October, and you can watch the All Things Oz Facebook page. You can look at the John Fricke blog, and we will be telling you more about this as it comes closer. Thanks very much. Also, thanks to Mark Baum for doing the techno aspects of setting this up, and to Cassie Weedy, who is our post-production editor. We're very grateful, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks.
Thank you.